Today we're going to be talking about buying games physically on PlayStation versus buying them digitally. First and foremost, I want to ask you, which do you prefer? Do you buy your games physically? Do you buy them digitally? Or is there kind of a blend where you buy some digitally and some physically? Let me know down in the comments below. The reason why I'm asking and the reason why we're talking about this is because nearly 80% of all PS5 and PS4 games are now purchased digitally. So if you are somebody who likes to buy and own your games physically, you're probably not feeling too great about that. We know that those of us who do buy our games physically, we're pretty passionate about it, right? And when you see that, apparently 80% of people are opting to not buy physical discs and not collect their games physically, but are opting in to buying their games digitally. It does kind of call into question, the future of physical games on PlayStation. So this is reading from Push Square. They say physical enthusiasts should probably look away now because Sony has revealed 79% of all PS5 and PS4 games sold during its latest fiscal quarter were for the digital version. This represents a dramatic increase for the start of fiscal year 2022, a 13% boost over fiscal year 2021 to be exact, when 2/3 of games were purchased digitally. In Q1 of fiscal year 2021, digital purchases stood at 71%. The two following quarters saw the percentage drop to 62%, and then it returned to 71% for Q4. The beginning of fiscal year 2022 sees this statistic at its highest ever at 79%. Interestingly, the amount of monthly active users on PSN dropped by 4 million across the latest quarter, suggesting there are fewer people using the service, but more of that user base are taking the digital route. So, yeah, this is some pretty telling data and interesting data because we can't look away from the fact that this is apparently the highest it's ever been for Sony when it comes to users choosing to buy their games digitally. Now, when I say that this calls into question the future of physical games for PlayStation, well, I don't know if I can sit here and say that, if that number continues to climb to eventually, say, 85% or maybe even 90% at some point over the course of this current generation, that Sony is going to stop producing physical discs and they're going to stop offering that as an option. You think about the next generation with the PlayStation 6, while it probably is a while from now, we do have to kind of wonder, should we expect physical discs to still be a thing? Will we be able to, go on Amazon or go into a store and purchase a physical PlayStation 6 copy of a game? Or is our only option going to be digital? Well, I feel like if you are somebody who buys games digitally, you have no concern with this. You're not worried about it at all. If you've already made the decision that this is just how you're going to buy your games, then you probably don't care. And I don't really fault people for choosing to buy digitally. I do understand when they say, look, it's just convenient. I don't have to worry about swapping out discs, right? And as far as we know, these games are not going to go anywhere anytime soon. But again, those who do care about physical games and collecting them and having that what feels like tangible ownership over a real product, right? Something that can't be taken away from you, something that offers, a few different benefits outside of just feeling like you actually own the product. It's understandable, I think, on both sides. I can see why people still continue to feel very passionate about buying games physically and owning them. And I can also understand why people are just totally okay with, I've embraced the digital future. Again, I personally like to collect my games physically, and so I have to admit, I do feel a little bit concerned. However, I'm not convinced that with looking at this number, seeing 80% of people buying their games digitally, I don't think this means Sony's going to stop producing PS5 games physically. Certainly not. We're going to continue to get PS5 games all throughout this generation. Even if this number climbs up to 98% by the time we are at the tail end of this generation, I don't think it matters. Sony will absolutely still be making physical PS5 discs because they're selling a PS5 that has a disc reader. So yeah, that's not something that you ever have to worry about. When it comes to PlayStation 6 and future PlayStation generations, even then, I have to admit, I still don't see Sony ever deciding to forego physical PlayStation games, because I look at other mediums, right? I look at the music industry, I look at the movie industry. You know, when you look at these industries, streaming is way more prevalent than it is with gaming. I mean, pretty much everybody streams their music. Everybody is watching their movies or their TV shows through streaming services, and yet you can still find Blu-rays everywhere. Vinyl obviously is still very popular and relevant, and while that may not be the main way that people are buying music or consuming music, it's still there. It still exists. Same can be said for Blu-rays. I feel like this is how it's going to be for video games as well, where I feel like no matter how high this number climbs, no matter just how dominant digital purchases are, there's still going to be the option. Even if you're just part of a group that's like the 1 or 2%, it's still going to exist. And I hope that I end up being correct with what I'm saying here, because it would just be unfortunate, I think, to say the least, if in the next 7, 8, 9 years or so, you know, the next generation of consoles are being rolled out. Both Sony and Microsoft announced that they're only digital consoles. They no longer offer a disc drive version. That would be incredibly unfortunate. I don't imagine that happening. It would be difficult to imagine that happening, because no matter, again, how high this number climbs, I just feel like that would not only be bad for those who still can't buy their games digitally or don't want to buy their games digitally, but I feel like there would be a lot of pushback, right? I feel like no matter how many people are actually actively choosing to buy their games digitally, I feel like many of them would still kind of advocate for having that option and having it there for those who want it. I don't think anybody would really be advocating for having less options and having things taken away. I feel like if we ever get to that point, it will just happen so naturally, nobody will even think twice about it. But I don't think we're anywhere near that point. Even looking at this statistic, we do have to take into account that that remaining 20%, it's coming from people who are buying their video games physically on the PlayStation platform. And if Sony were to just snap their fingers and say, you can't do that anymore, you can only buy our games digitally, there's a good chance that they wouldn't make up all of that 20%. I mean, I can guarantee you they wouldn't. So yeah, we'll just have to continue to follow this, but nonetheless, I thought it would make for an interesting conversation, because, you know, we're always talking about, are we buying our games physically? Are we buying them digitally? What should we be doing? What's your preference? And are we really kind of slowly marching towards a digital-only future? At this point, you guys can leave your thoughts down in the comments below. I'll be interested to see what you have to say. Leave the video a like if you enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel if you're new, hit the bell notification icon, and feel free to share this video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.